Hey besties, welcome back to the channel. Today's update is wild because Blake Lively's attorneys just got absolutely humiliated in court, and honestly, it was hysterical. They literally showed up to a hearing that had nothing to do with them. Zero. Not even remotely connected. And if you remember last week, they pulled the same stunt, filing a supplemental response to Stephanie Jones's motion to compel, a motion that did not involve them. Wayfarer even had to step in and tell the court, this has nothing to do with Blake Lively. Well, they're back at it. So Blake's attorneys, led by our favorite docket clogger, Kristen Bender, show up to this totally unrelated hearing. The only loose connection is that Blake's company, Van Zandt Inc., is looped into a different case because Stephanie Jones is being sued by Jen Abel for allegedly dumping her phone contents to Blake and illegally accessing her computer. That's the allegation. But this hearing? Not about that, not about Blake, not about Van Zandt, not about anything tied to them. And yet, they walked in. Now here's where it gets chaotic. Stephanie Jones recently stopped trying to toss out Jen Abel's countersuit. So, as of now, we've got multiple competing cases. Jonesworks versus Jen Abel, Melissa Nathan, Baldoni, and Wayfarer, Jen Abel versus Stephanie Jones, Wayfarer versus Stephanie Jones for breach of contract, none of which, again, involve Blake Lively. So Blake's lawyers stroll in, and the hearing is a mess from the second it starts. My favorite part? Listening to Kristen Taylor, truly one of the most incompetent attorneys connected to any of this, scramble in real time. This is the same Kristen who once sent me a cease and desist claiming it was defamation to call Stephanie Jones ruthless and cutthroat. I didn't realize stating an opinion was defamation now. If that's the standard, then half the internet is going to jail. This whole fight is literally about an opinion website. People sharing their experiences with Stephanie Jones. Clients, ex-employees, industry folks. Business Insider even interviewed over 40 people with the same complaints. But apparently, every single one of them is lying because Stephanie said so. Totally normal behavior. Anyway, today's hearing was about this allegedly defamatory website. So here's the evidence recap. Stephanie subpoenaed Meta, Pinterest, and Twitter. The accounts all traced back to Katie Cassis, a former Jonesworks employee. The website domain was registered using someone else's name, another Jonesworks employee who denies doing it. Katie already testified that she wrote the website copy. Social accounts for Stephanie Jones leaks and similar handles trace back to Katie Cassis and Rihanna Clough. So at this point, we know Katie created the Facebook page, the Pinterest, the Twitter before it got banned, and she wrote the website. That's not disputed anymore. What is disputed is Katie's claim that she did all of this at the direction of Melissa Nathan. She says she discussed it on the phone with Melissa and that she might have sent drafts to Melissa. Melissa denies everything and says Katie is lying, possibly to avoid becoming a defendant herself. But here's where it gets even more ridiculous. Stephanie's attorneys are now pretending they only discovered this conflict during the deposition, even though Melissa's official answer filed in court already said she denied involvement. Enter Kristen Taylor, attempting mental gymnastics to justify why this extremely late motion to compel is somehow valid. Meanwhile, Blake Lively's attorney tries to chime in, and the judge shuts her down immediately. You are not a party to this. We're not hearing from you. Goodbye. They literally got kicked out of the conversation. So Kristen Taylor is left trying to salvage this mess, talking in circles, changing excuses every 30 seconds, and insisting this is all relevant, while Kevin Fritz is calmly pointing out that the entire motion is untimely and unsupported. And that's where the chaos ended. For today. I don't know how the judge is going to rule, but I will say this. When Judge Lyman was speaking to Kevin Fritz, who represents Wayfarer, things got very interesting. The judge basically asked, how exactly are you prejudiced by Katie's attorneys complying with the subpoena that was issued late? And Fritz fired right back. He reminded the judge that when Wayfarer tried to get an extension to depose Taylor Swift before their deadline, the judge denied it. Judge Lyman said it was Wayfarer's fault for not doing their due diligence and scheduling it earlier, and he shut down that deposition. So Fritz pointed out the obvious double standard. If Wayfarer wasn't allowed to go outside the discovery deadline, why should Katie's team be allowed to? It was the spiciest moment of the hearing. They basically threw the judge's own logic back in his face. Then Katie Cassis's attorneys got on, and it was very clear that they do not like Melissa Nathan anymore. They aren't really siding with JonesWorks either. Katie is in full self-preservation mode, and everyone can see it. Fritz even pointed out that Katie might be trying to avoid being added as a defendant. And then Tyler, representing JonesWorks, basically confirmed it. If they can prove certain things, it could help keep Katie from being added to the lawsuit, even though the deadline to amend the complaint has already passed, so the whole argument is bizarre. But anyway, here's what nobody is talking about. They're actually fighting over Scooter Braun. It makes no sense for Stephanie Jones to go this hard at TAG over a simple website, but the testimony and the not-so-subtle hints keep pointing back to one thing. That website may have been created for a former client of JonesWorks, someone who also happens to own TAG, Scooter Braun. Here's the backstory. Scooter wasn't a client of JonesWorks as a company. He was Stephanie Jones's personal client for years. She handled him directly during the height of his fight with Taylor Swift over the Masters. And I was told that during that time, Scooter learned that Stephanie had been brigading Taylor Swift's social media, Reddit, Instagram, everywhere, using interns to post negative comments. Not bots, real people. All allegedly done to harass Taylor, even though Scooter never asked for that. When he found out, he wanted out of the contract, out of the relationship, out of everything. So Scooter leaves. Then he decides to start his own PR firm, but he doesn't want his name attached. So he sets up TAG. Melissa Nathan becomes the public face and president, but one of Scooter's companies becomes the managing member, meaning Scooter's the money, the control, the owner, the actual boss. He's the one who decides which clients TAG takes. He's the one who told TAG they would be working with Jen Abel on the Baldoni case, even though neither he nor TAG wanted anything to do with JonesWorks. They were only willing to work with Melissa. So, yes, Scooter is the financial backer of TAG. But here's the weird part. He's not being sued by anyone. His employees are being sued, but not him, even though it's his company and he's the one giving orders. And Stephanie Jones isn't going to sue him because she still wants him back as a client. So instead, she's fixated on Melissa, painting her as the villain, which could be an attempt to create friction between Melissa and Scooter. But here's the truth. It could easily have been Scooter directing Katie, and Melissa simply relaying the message. Or Melissa might truly have had nothing to do with it. She says exactly that. Just last week, Melissa Nathan signed a sworn declaration saying she had no involvement in the websites created against Amanda Ghost in the Rebel Wilson lawsuit. I've been covering that whole case over on Instagram. Rebel even reshared some of my posts on her stories.
So thank you, Rebel. But here's where things get even crazier. Melissa Nathan has denied being involved in these websites too. So someone out there is making websites dragging people. But remember, the best defense to defamation is truth. If the website was simply sharing people's real experiences, then Stephanie should be suing Scooter, right? But she's not. Instead, she's trying to burn down Melissa's PR company and go after Scooter's employees, because Scooter is the financial backer. And honestly, it kind of feels like he's letting his people hang out to dry, because he hasn't been pulled into any of this, even though the anger is clearly aimed at him. Katie is trying to pin the whole thing on Melissa. Melissa says she had nothing to do with it. And honestly, what if it wasn't Melissa? What if it was Scooter who told Katie to make the website? What if it was The Rock? What if it was literally any one of the dozens of celebrities and clients who cannot stand Stephanie Jones? Or, plot twist, Katie might have just made the website on her own. And again, was the website even defamatory if it was basically opinions and shared experiences? I don't know. But what I do know is this. The real fight here has nothing to do with Melissa Nathan. This is pure retribution for Scooter leaving Stephanie, teaming up with Melissa, funding her company, and then allegedly having staff who don't like Stephanie. Stephanie is furious with Scooter, but instead of suing him, she's laser focused on destroying Melissa's company. And for what? Because she thinks Melissa stole Scooter from her professionally? Imagine being this vindictive over a man named Scooter. And meanwhile, these websites, they're dumb. If you're angry at someone, why would you waste your time making shady WordPress sites? It's giving Scientology smear campaign energy. Not that I think the Stephanie Johns website was defamatory, because let's be real, most of what was on it sounded accurate. So, long story short, this entire case is about Scooter Braun. Stephanie wants Scooter back. She thinks Melissa replaced her. Scooter is backing Melissa's agency now, and Stephanie is trying to nuke the competition under the guise of defamation. Stephanie's lawyers are desperately trying to force Katie to turn over evidence proving Melissa was behind the website. But there's no evidence. None. All the discovery so far points to Katie and Brianna Clough, who aren't denying involvement. And at the end of the day, that means the jury will have to decide whose story is more believable. Now, about Blake Lively's chaotic attempt to insert herself into this mess, didn't work. The judge didn't rule from the bench. He took everything under advisement. Kristen Taylor, meanwhile, looked unprepared and frantic. She even started accusing the other side of deleting evidence. But when the judge asked her to point to the motion she was referencing, she couldn't, because it wasn't from this case. Kevin Fritz literally had to remind the judge that no motion for spoliation exists in this case at all. She was just throwing spaghetti at a wall and hoping something would stick. And knowing Judge Lyman, he'll probably still grant Stephanie's subpoena to get evidence that doesn't even exist, because this entire lawsuit has become a full-blown circus. And that's the tea, besties. If you're wondering whether Blake Lively and Stephanie Jones are still teaming up behind the scenes, the answer is yes, absolutely. They're filing nonsense motions, tag-teaming hearings, and propping each other up every step of the way. But the truth is, if a smear campaign actually happened, it originated with Jones Works. Stephanie is the owner. She's already potentially on the hook for damages. So, what do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already and hit the bell so you never miss a video. Thanks for watching. Bye, besties.